So once you've done 6 gesture drawings and 3 20-minute drawings, I want you to do one longer drawing that's going to be either, it needs to be at least 60 minutes. If you don't feel like it's finished after 60 minutes, I want you to keep working on it and get it as finished as possible. I'm mostly looking at your ability to measure figure proportions on this, to measure things on the figure. One of the things we talked about last week is if I hold my pencil like this, I can look at this angle from the elbow to the toe. And if I hold it there, I need my arm straight out. I can move that same angle over to my paper. And that gives me a guideline. Again, make these very, very light so only you can see them. I'm making it darker than it should be so that you can see it. I can do the same thing with his toe to his other foot. Something I do want to point out that I maybe haven't talked about is you might be used to writing like this and drawing like this. This is how you write. But this is very limiting in the amount of motion that I have because I'm using my fingers to move it. If I move my wrist, I can move it farther. If I move my elbow, I can move it farther. But then my hand is getting in everything that I'm doing. It's good to change the way you hold your pencil. You can hold it like this. And this is a good way to make marks because you can have these longer sweeping marks instead of these, drop my pencil, instead of a line that looks like this. Or even if you're still holding it like that, bringing your hand back so you have a lot more motion here and that you're moving with your whole arm. Your whole arm is moving instead of just your fingers. Because this way I can get some longer lines that go all the way across my page, which is really hard to do this way. All right, so once I have this angle and that angle, I then am going to want to, I really like this line that I see here. And this is something that I talked about last week. If I look at this shape here, instead of drawing this arm and this leg and the body, I'm going to draw this shape that's in the middle. I don't have any preconceived idea of what shape that is. We always want to draw what we see, not what we know. You're going to hear me say that over and over again. Draw what you see, not what you know. And I don't have any concept of what that shape should be. So if I just draw this shape, I'm going to be more accurate than if I try to draw his arm or his leg. This is obviously a much more advanced pose than what we would have with the model. If you want to choose a pose that is not this advanced, I totally understand that. I'm just bringing that line all the way out and seeing shoot, shoot, shoot. I'm going to go ahead and draw his pants, even though normally I would be working with a nude model. And we're going to talk, our next lesson is going to be about the face. Next week's videos are going to be about drawing the face. And then the following week is going to be about hands. So for hands, I'm just drawing this overall outline of the entire hand. I'm not getting into fingers and all of that stuff. And for the face, I'm getting the general outline. I'm not worrying about get too much into the details there. We will talk about that next week. Something I do want to point out is that I'm drawing all of this in. I have this line and this line and this line, but I'm not erasing those out. Even though they're not actually part of the figure, I'm not erasing them. I'm going to keep them as long as I can. If they start to distract me from what the drawing is, then I would take them out. But if I don't have to erase something, I'm not going to. It's nice to kind of leave those in there because they can still be useful to me as I'm drawing. If I don't have to take them out, I'm not going to. Yeah. So this is mostly what I want to look for right now is, can you use these sight lines to kind of line up where things go. This is my big line of action. That is my most interesting line here. Yeah. And then also just measuring things out. So another way of measuring is if I'm trying to figure out how long to make this arm, I can take my pencil like this with my hand straight out and measure from the tips of the fingers to the shoulder and find something else on his body, like his elbow to his waist, that's the same distance. And then I know if I go on my drawing and I go elbow to the waist, it should be the same as the shoulder to the fingertips. And in my drawing it is, so I got that right. Which is nice. It's good to know. I am looking at this and seeing that his toe maybe should be farther out, so I can measure from his waist right here to the tip of his toe and see that his tip of his toe down here to his chin should be the same. Tip of the toe to the chin, waist to the tip of the toe. Actually, that looks about right too. I do have something off in my drawing that I see more space here. It looks like his foot might just be too big, that I need to kind of fix, or his wrist is out too far. That this heel needs to come in to actually make this right. All right. So I want you to practice both measuring the size of things this way and measuring angles with your pencil like this. And you can do this if I come back here. A lot of times, well, my camera's not going to refocus, but a lot of times if the model is farther away, I'm measuring about this much on my pencil. So from the armpit to the fingertips here is the same as the length of that leg, and I can measure the same thing here. Length of that leg is the same as I don't remember what it was that I was measuring. The armpit over here to the fingertips should be the same as the length of that leg, which tells me maybe this should come out a little farther. So that's what I want you to do. I want you to really get used to making those measurements and trying to be able to see things that way. Let me make this a little. All right. So for the whole week, you should have 6 gesture drawings, 3 20-minute drawings, which are going to be like longer gesture drawings, and 1 60 minutes or more drawing like this. If you get to where you're like, yeah, I feel like I'm good about how this is laid out, then go ahead and start applying value, which is going to be your lights and darks. But if you feel like, no, if it takes you more than 60 minutes just to kind of get things laid out, if you're still working on proportions in that way, if you're very dissatisfied with how it's laid out, focus on this basic drawing proportions, and you don't have to worry about value yet. We will talk a lot more about adding value. For now, just work on how to lay out and how to find the arm, leg, body.